Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. Well, the Ontario government is putting a pause on safe injection sites. We share with you what that means for the approval of Windsor's location. Plus, Essex County has lost the majority of its wetland space. Tonight, an explanation on the restoration efforts needed for one wetland to survive. And a restaurant is putting its own spin on one of our region's most popular crops. The Ontario government is putting a pause on approving new drug consumption and treatment sites. It's the approval Windsor site SafePoint has been waiting for, which could also come with funding. Now the health unit is pleading with the province to provide a timeline. The CBC's Jen LaGrassa is outside of SafePoint tonight. Jen, what does the pause on applications mean for the site there behind you?
It puts SafePoint's provincial application in limbo. So it's unclear if and when it will be approved as a drug consumption and treatment site by the province. Approval that would come with funding. And that's really what the health unit is concerned about, because it's been using its budget to fund this service here for the last 5 months. But that was only supposed to be temporary. It costs about $700,000 annually to run a service like this. That province-wide review actually began in the summer, and it was after a woman was killed outside of a site in Toronto.
It was our expectation that the funding would have come by this summer. The unfortunate incident in Toronto has caused a pause for the province, but we still need to know you know where we're at, and more specifically how long this review is going to take.
The health unit reached out to the Ministry of Health earlier this week, but it says it still hasn't heard back about a timeline for SafePoint's status. And it needs that ahead of its Board of Health meeting, because that's when it's going to be looking at its budget for next year. That meeting is November 20th.
Jen, what happens if the ministry doesn't provide a timeline by the next Board of Health meeting?
Yeah, well, Meg, there's a lot that's at stake here. I mean, this site, it's taken a lot to really come to our city. It's gone through a lot of hurdles to get here. And Costante says that losing a space like this would really be a loss of care for people in our community. We know, based on the numbers, more and more people every year are dying from a drug overdose. Costante says when we look at this site, there's been 600 visits in the last 5 months, and 149 people have been redirected to social services, so things like housing, for example.
I want to assure everyone that's here today and the public that's watching that the Board of Health will do the responsible, prudent thing.
At this time, the City of Windsor has not directly put any funding towards this site. And when asked whether that was a possibility, Costante says that if they don't get a timeline from the ministry, then all options will be on the table moving forward. Again, Meg, that Board of Health meeting is going to be November 20th.
Well, thanks so much for that, Jen. That's the CBC's Jen LaGrassa reporting live. A bus full of about 50 refugee claimants is expected to arrive in Windsor today from Toronto. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada tells CBC News it works with communities across Canada that have capacity to help. They say that's so it doesn't place too much pressure on any one region. Last year and through the winter, our city had as many as 1,400 refugee claimants here. Now the city says that number has dropped to about 600. Matthew House is one of several organizations that help some of them when they arrive. They completely rely on donations from the community.
Resources are certainly being stretched, especially for grocery gift cards and bus tickets and things like that. And in addition, just the need to staff to provide settlement supports for that number of people. However, again, Windsor Essex is an incredibly welcoming, incredibly caring community, and our donor partners and those in the community have never let us down. So we're very optimistic.
There's not a lot of wetland area left in southwestern Ontario. 90% of it has been lost, making what remains incredibly valuable. but there's a cost to keep protections in place. As the CBC's Chris Ensing shows us, one of the most significant pieces of wetland in Essex County needs an unprecedented restoration effort to survive.
I'm standing at a coastal erosion collision course. Over here on my left is Lake Erie, which has just slammed in to Hillman Marsh over on our right. What's behind me right here, behind that massive tree? Well, it used to be a beach, but aerial photos are going to show you that that has been slowly slipping away over the years, getting worse and worse. And that's a big deal because this marsh is a significant line of defense for a dike system that protects hundreds of houses in the Leamington area, as well as businesses, as well as farmland. But what's happening here, and you can see it, is that the lake water has been pushing into Hillman Marsh, really turning this into a bay of Lake Erie. The local conservation authority is hosting public meetings right now to try and figure out what to do about this, proposing a couple of solutions that will rebuild part of this beach barrier here, which they say is the first line of defense against destructive flooding that, if combined with a once-in-a-century storm, something Windsor's seeing pretty often these days, as going to cause catastrophic flooding for the area.
We want to halt that process to harden the shoreline in some ways, and at the same time recreate a natural-like barrier. And then behind that natural-like barrier, the intent is to have a lot of restoration take place so that we start having cattails and bulrushes and all sorts of submerged aquatic vegetation return to that area again. So that we have a far more biodiverse wetland. Right where we're standing, we're going to be initiating a little bit of work. We have received some funding from the province already to do a test spot, like a small area, and actually do some development right here. So this work is going to be happening. Hopefully, we're going to start this fall. But the idea is that it's fully completed by next summer. And that's a $500,000 grant that we received to initiate these works. In terms of the larger project, some of the initial cost estimates are putting this project at over $10 million. So because of that, the timing of this is completely dependent on funding. So as we secure funding, we can do more of this project. But step one is to make sure that we have a design that everybody's comfortable with, that our board approves, and that we've consulted the public on.
That's the CBC's Chris Ensing reporting. Now, the Essex Region Conservation Authority has spent a year putting this restoration plan together. People can take a look at it Tuesday night in Leamington. The public meeting will start at 6 p.m. IRCA says without immediate action, the beach and marsh will continue to disappear. The Windsor Police Service is trying to build better leaders within its organization, and it's leaning on the University of Windsor to help.
Learning self-management skills, learning to be self-aware, reflecting on how their presence, their communication skills may affect others. I think that's definitely something that unless you're going through the motions and obviously being exposed to having to reflect in that manner, you're not going to be as self-aware. And so I think that that's definitely what we're looking for them to take away from this.
Windsor Police is paying the university for a week-long course that starts later this month. 25 officers and civilian employees will take part in the training. Conflict management, communications, and team building are some of the main focuses of the course. The university says police reached out asking for this type of development. The Windsor Police Service said it wasn't available for an interview. In a news release this week, it said this course will be in addition to its own training center and police colleges. CBC News has reported on internal surveys at the Windsor Police Service in recent years. Many surveyed questioned whether senior leadership was concerned about employee welfare and making fair decisions. Erie Shore's Healthcare is reinstating its mandatory masking policy for staff. Starting Tuesday, hospital employees will be required to wear masks when they're within 2 meters of a patient. The hospital says it's taking this step because of the recent surge in COVID-19 cases. They hope bringing this policy back will mitigate the risk of COVID-19 transmission. This comes as Windsor Regional Hospital plans to also reintroduce its own mandatory masking policy for staff and volunteers next week. Canada added almost 64,000 jobs in September. It's many more than what experts expected, and it kept the unemployment rate steady at 5.5%. Senior business reporter Nisha Patel digs into the numbers.
Another month, another blockbuster jobs report, but many economists say the details aren't as strong as the headline numbers suggest. Most of the jobs were added in education, a sector that can be volatile at this time of year. More people were also hired in transportation and warehousing, though some of those gains were offset with fewer people working in finance and real estate, as well as construction. There was also a surge in part-time hiring, which may be related to booming immigration, with Canada seeing the fastest population growth since 1957.
A lot of newcomers, when they first come here, they might have to engage in part-time employment because it's difficult to get full-time jobs right away.
The influx of workers is helping to relieve the intense labor shortage facing businesses.
So where are you off to today?
Though some sectors like trucking are still desperate to hire.
Increasingly, it's getting tougher and tougher to find drivers. There's more drivers who are getting older, retiring. There's less new drivers coming into the industries.
Meanwhile, workers continue to demand higher compensation, with average hourly wages up 5% year over year.
If workers keep asking for more money, which they are getting it, employers are paying them more. Businesses will have to keep raising price, and that puts upward pressure on prices to consumers.
That's a concern for the Bank of Canada, which has raised interest rates 10 times over the past year and a half as it tries to slow the economy to rein in inflation. Canada's job market is proving surprisingly resilient amid all those aggressive interest rate hikes. Though the economy is cooling and inflation has slowed, market watchers bet there's a 40% chance the Bank of Canada will hike interest rates later this month. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
U.S. President Joe Biden is on the defensive after adding to the border wall. His administration will add about 30 kilometers along the Texas border.
They have to use the money for what was appropriate. I can't stop that.
Do you believe the border wall works?
No.
As you can hear, Biden insists he had no choice because the money for the wall was already earmarked. He campaigned against former President Donald Trump's plan to build it, and he halted emergency funding when he came to power in 2021. Biden is facing backlash from advocates for migrants and the Mexican government, and Trump is seizing on the news to score political points. White House confirmation that the wall is being expanded happened on the same day the Biden administration announced another reversal on migrant policy. Migrants from Venezuela will now be flown back to that country. The Biden administration tightened rules for migrants back in May, but border crossings have been climbing sharply in recent weeks. Well, do you have Riz? Is your dinner bussin'? A number of new slang words have been added to the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Some think it's mid, while others are just saying chef's kiss. If you don't understand any of what I just said, the CBC Windsor's intern Sonia Tumker is here to explain them, and you could say she's goated.
Merriam-Webster added in 690 new words to their dictionary. We asked people passing by if they knew what these words meant. Bussin'. Any guesses?
Cool.
Cool?
That's
I was gonna say taking a bus.
No, I think I've heard it
I don't
before.
know.
I think it's like, this is cool.
Does it have to do with kissing or taking the bus?
Or bussing tables.
Yeah, okay.
Busting your tail to get something done. Doing something energetic.
I have no idea about that.
Keeping busy?
Bussin' is like when something usually when something tastes like really good, so it's just like good. It's just too good.
I would say a little bit out there, a little bit extreme.
Like risque, sort of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom has Riz. That's an example. What do you think that means when I say that?
He's got audacity.
Pizzazz.
Style, yeah.
Charisma in full, but Riz is like, how do you explain Riz? When you can Riz someone up. They got game. They got game, basically. You think you guys have Riz?
Yeah, I do.
Can you tell me what you think what the word mid means?
I wonder if it's like meh, kind of like meh.
Oh, like
Medium.
kind of like something medium. That's a good guess, maybe.
In the middle.
Middle.
In the middle.
In the middle?
Mid? It's like when something's like mediocre. Like it's not that great, not too bad, just mid.
How do you guys feel about these words being added to the dictionary?
Language is an organic, living thing, and it needs to change. And I think that's perfectly fine. I add these crazy new words.
They're not so crazy.
Well, there's no doubt about it, this region knows how to eat corn. We've had lots of practice as it's been grown in the area for decades. But one chef is transforming those Essex County cobs from a barbecue dish to a delicate dessert. We headed to Gladstone Commons today to get the scoop. CBC Windsor always has our ears to the ground when it comes to local and interesting ideas. Well, they're cooking up something here at Gladstone Commons, but I must admit, it's a little bit corny. Well, what I'm going to first have you do is introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Jason Ouellette. I'm the chef here at Gladstone Commons. We're sort of an upscale, fun neighborhood bistro. And yeah, we do everything as local as possible, and I think that's why you're here today.
You have a dessert that is catching some attention. Can you tell me what that is?
So we've been running a Essex County sweet corn ice cream sundae. We recently had a local supplier reach out to us. It's a farmer in the area. He's bringing us beautiful corn that's picked like the morning of, essentially, and bringing it into the space. And so we've done a bunch of different things, playing around with corn. Obviously, like corn's almost a religion here in Essex County, so we've done a bunch of different specials with it, but this has been the one that's kind of topped it all for sure.
All right, let's see how you do it. What goes into it?
Okay, so first thing we're gonna do, we infuse our cream with corn. So we've got our, we've got just full-on corn that we just cut down into the kernels, and we throw the cob in there too to try and get as much flavor as possible. We let this steep for a couple hours and kind of let it sit overnight, actually, with everything in it, blitz up the corn kernels in there, and then pass it through the next day. After that, we'll follow to this beautiful pot over here, which is a combination of just a regular ice cream base of eggs, sugar, and then our infused cream as well. And then so we bring it over a double boiler. You can see I got a little bit of boiling water down here, just nice and gentle, and it'll thicken slowly. We let this cool, and then the mixture goes in the ice cream machine.
All right.
Let's do it.
I am so excited. Essex County corn is one of my favorite foods. All right. Oh, that's lovely. Like you were saying, it's not too sweet. It's very subtle, actually.
Yeah, that's. We just want to let the natural corn flavors do their thing, and yeah.
I could eat that whole thing.
Go for it.
Thank you so much for letting us come out here.
That's been great. Thank you.
This weekend, the Detroit Pistons kick off their first preseason game against the Phoenix Suns. The team started training camp this week. Now, we looked way back in the archives to find this footage from back in 1986.
The Pistons have just finished their workout here at University of Windsor. One of my favorite of all the Piston basketball players is this cat right here, Ricky Mahorn, number 44.
That's the Pistons practicing at the University of Windsor St. Denis Center. CBC reporter Marty Adler catching up with some of the players during their preseason camp. Lots of those students on the bleachers skipping class to see the Pistons up close. I know my own mother was one of them. The head coach at the time was Chuck Daly, and the roster included Isaiah Thomas and Dennis Rodman. That season, the Pistons advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics. We want good weather for Thanksgiving, but will we get it? We have your full weather forecast coming up after the break. Can you believe it? Thanksgiving is here, and just in time for the holiday, it's going to feel way more like the fall. Let's check in with Victor Paolo for this weekend's forecast.
Meg, hope you're having yourself a great start to your long weekend, as we are expecting some beautiful weather in comparison to a lot of the province when it comes to your Saturday. But outside of that Saturday, one thing to note, it's going to be a chilly night tonight, followed by cooler days, and we do have a windy Sunday in store. Now, average temperatures in Windsor, 18 is your average high, 8.2 is your average low. Remember those two numbers when we're looking at our 3 and 7 day forecast. Now, when it comes to what we're expecting, when it comes to the overnight, you can see that there will be a bit of rain working its way through, but then once it's all said and done for your Saturday, it's going to remain pretty clear outside of a little bit of cloud cover. Unlike the majority of the province, as you do see here, Ottawa and the surrounding areas east of Ontario are going to be slammed with about 30 to 50 millimeters of rain. The GTA is expecting around 30 millimeters over the next 7 days. But over here in Windsor, let me tell you, nothing but a touch of cloud cover, a little bit of rain, nothing to worry about for a Saturday. But when it comes towards your Sunday, one thing to note, hey, look at that, a beautiful start to your day, but there will be some scattered showers working its way in. No significant rainfalls, but more of the scattered variety. Now, one thing to note, one thing we're not getting in Windsor is any of this blue stuff. And that blue stuff is snow right there, because no one wants any of that right now. But when it comes to your Thanksgiving Monday, it's going to be another day where it's going to be quite clear with a touch of rain in the forecast. Now, when it comes to your 3 and 7 day forecast, it's going to be a rainy Saturday as mentioned, but look at that Sunday and Monday. Beautiful weather in store. And when it comes to the rest of your 3 and 7 day forecast, you can see that Tuesday is going to be pretty sunny with a mix of cloud cover, as well as Wednesday as well. But your Thursday and Friday, we're expecting some more rain to return. But you know what? Compared to a lot of other places, not too bad for the Windsor area. A little bit of rain, scattered showers on Saturday, but your Sunday, Monday, your Tuesday, Wednesday are pretty good. But don't forget, 18 degrees is your average high. And look at that 14, 13, 12, 13, 16, 15, and 14. It's going to be some cooler days ahead. Happy Thanksgiving weekend, and over to you, Meg.
Well, thanks so much for that, Victor. That is the CBC's Victor Paolo. Well, the police in Spain have made a big arrest, busting 12 people for stealing. But the goods they were after might come as a surprise. We have that story coming up. Canada's highest court has dismissed a freedom of the press appeal made by several media organizations, including CBC News. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that media can't publish pre-trial proceedings of a criminal trial before jurors begin deliberations or are dismissed. The ruling says publication bans protect the right of the accused to a fair trial. 2 cases were at issue, including the high-profile trial of a Dutch man who was convicted for his role in the death of Amanda Todd. She's the BC teen who died by suicide in 2012 after being exploited online. 8 media organizations argued a publication ban on pre-trial proceedings in the cases violated freedom of the press. Police in Spain have seized 74,000 kilos of stolen olives. It's the latest theft involving the prized crop triggered by soaring prices and a shrinking harvest. 12 people in total were arrested for their suspected involvement in the heist. The raid took place at an establishment where olives are traded. No word on what happened to all of those olives. Hopefully, all of them don't have to be stored as evidence for too long. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV and CBC streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you're going to have a lovely Thanksgiving weekend. Looking forward to seeing you back here next week.